There is a scoop of white powder sitting in my palm right now. It weighs about as much as a tennis ball. It cost me roughly $2, and by next week it will have turned 1,000 square feet of my lawn the same shade of dark green that my neighbor pays $60 a bag to get. He buys his from a garden center. I buy mine from a feed store. The product inside both bags is the same compound, the same element, doing the same thing to the same plant. The only difference is that his bag has a picture of a lawn on the front and mine doesn't. His grass doesn't care about the picture, neither does mine. The lawn care industry does not need to lie to you. It does not need to hide this product, because it's not hidden. It's sitting in a store you've never been taught to visit, on a shelf with no photographs, at a price that makes the branded aisle look like a misunderstanding. Nobody lied. You were just never given a reason to look. The same compound sits on two shelves in the same town. On one shelf it's called lawn food, and it's wrapped in a photograph and a promise. On the other shelf it has a plain label and a number. The grass between those two shelves doesn't know the difference, because there is no difference to know. My name is Kenji Tanaka. I've kept the same lawn for 11 years, and for the first 4 of those years I bought the premium bag, the one with the best-looking lawn on the label. I'm embarrassed to say that now, not because the product was bad, it wasn't, but because of how long it took me to understand what I was actually paying for. I walked into a feed store one spring for something else entirely, and I saw the same chemical on a shelf with no marketing around it at all. Plain bag, plain type, $26 for 50 pounds. I stood there long enough that the man behind the counter asked if I needed help. I told him what I'd been paying at the garden center for the same nitrogen. He didn't laugh, but he wanted to. That was 7 years ago. I have not bought a branded lawn fertilizer since. My grass is the same color it was before. The only thing that changed is which aisle I walk down, and the fact that I keep an extra $500 a year that used to go to a picture on a bag. Before I show you the method, I want to mention something once, because it matters, and then I won't bring it up again. There are far more methods than I can fit into a single video. I wrote them all down in a book. It's on my website, links just below this video. I won't mention it again. If it interests you, it's there. So, let's talk about what's actually happening when you feed a lawn, because this takes about 2 minutes to explain, and it's the thing nobody walks you through at the garden center. Every bag of fertilizer has 3 numbers on it. You've seen them. Something like the 20th of May 10, or 30-0-4, or in the case of the bag I use, 21-0-0. Those numbers are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, always in that order. Phosphorus feeds roots. It matters when you're starting a lawn from seed or laying new sod, and it mostly does not matter after that. Potassium helps the plant handle heat, cold, drought, and disease. It's the quiet one. It keeps things stable. But the color, the thickness, the lush dark look that makes your neighbor slow down in his truck. That's nitrogen. Almost entirely nitrogen. A lawn that looks thin and pale and hungry is a lawn that is short on nitrogen. Feed the nitrogen. The green comes back. That part is not complicated, and it's the part that every premium brand quietly agrees with, because every premium bag leads with its nitrogen number. It's always the biggest of the 3. So the only question that actually matters is this: what is the cheapest way to put nitrogen on the ground? And the answer has been sitting in farm supply stores the entire time, on the shelf, without the pictures. Ammonium sulfate. The bag reads 21-0-0, 21% nitrogen, 0 phosphorus, 0 potassium. And riding along with it, a bonus that nobody talks about, 24% sulfur. I'll come back to the sulfur later because it's doing a second job that the premium bag charges extra to address. A 50-pound bag runs about $26 at a farm supply or feed store. Tractor Supply carries it. Most feed stores carry it. Some of the bigger hardware chains have it in the lawn section, though they tend to charge a few dollars more for the same bag, which tells you something about what the word lawn does to a price tag. At the standard feeding rate, that single bag covers roughly 10,000 square feet. Do the math on a normal suburban lawn, and you're spending about $2 to green 1,000 square feet of grass. The same 1,000 square feet fed from a premium branded bag costs 15, 20, sometimes more. Identical nitrogen. Identical green. The grass cannot tell the difference because chemically there is no difference to tell. A nitrogen atom does not arrive at the root with a receipt attached. It does not perform differently because it came from a bag with a photograph on it. I ran the test on my own lawn. 20 feet split down the middle. Premium on the left, ammonium sulfate on the right. Same rate, same day, same water. I took a photograph every morning for 2 weeks. By day 5, the halves were the same shade. By day 10, my wife asked me which side was which, and I had to check the photograph because I couldn't remember either. If you've never been in a farm supply store, let me tell you what it looks like. Because the experience itself is part of the education. There are no lifestyle photographs. There are no end caps with seasonal displays. There is a man in a vest who knows exactly what everything does and has no opinion about what your yard ought to look like. You ask for 21-0-0, he points at a pallet, and the bag is yours for less than you paid for lunch on the way there. It is the most unceremonious purchase you will make this season, and it will do more for your lawn than anything in the garden center's featured aisle. So, what exactly is the extra $34 buying you? It's a fair question, and the honest answer isn't a scam. It's a coating. Premium bags use slow-release nitrogen. The granules are wrapped in a polymer shell, sometimes a sulfur shell, that dissolves gradually over 6 to 8 weeks. The nitrogen trickles out a little at a time, so the feeding is spread across nearly 2 months instead of hitting the soil all at once. That is a genuine convenience. It means you can spread the product on a hot Thursday, forget to water, go away for the weekend, come back Monday, and your lawn is fine. The coating is forgiveness. The freedom to not pay attention. And some people want that, and I have no argument with them. Ammonium sulfate offers no such forgiveness. It is quick release. It's raw, it's fast, and it greens hard within days. But it has what's called a high salt index, a 69 on that scale, which means it asks one thing of you in return for all the money it saves. One rule: water it in, immediately. Not tonight, not tomorrow morning, within the hour. A deep soaking, enough to carry every granule off the grass blade and down into the soil where the roots can take it up. Here's why, and I want you to understand this mechanically, so you never get it wrong. Those granules sitting on a dry grass blade in the sun are pulling moisture straight out of the plant tissue through osmosis. The salt concentration on the blade surface is higher than the water concentration inside the blade, so water moves out. Within a day, you'll see brown burn streaks everywhere a granule sat too long, and you'll understand exactly why the premium bag sells forgiveness. That's the entire reason people fear cheap nitrogen. They didn't water it in. They treated it like the premium bag, which is designed to sit there patiently. And ammonium sulfate is not patient. It's effective and it's cheap, and it requires you to finish the job the same afternoon you start it. Spread it as evenly as you can. A cheap handheld broadcast spreader is plenty, and you don't need the $200 push model. Walk at a steady pace, overlap your passes slightly, and understand that because ammonium sulfate greens so fast, any uneven patch shows up as a dark stripe against a lighter stripe about a week later. Not permanent, not harmful, just visible, and the kind of thing that will bother you every time you look at it until the next mowing evens it out. The rate: half a pound of actual nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Since ammonium sulfate is 21% nitrogen, that works out to about 2.5 pounds of product per 1,000 square feet. Measure this. Don't guess. More is not better here, it's just more salt on the blade. Now let me save you from the other answer, because if you've searched this topic at all, you've already been told to do something that does not work. And I'd rather you hear that from me than find out on your lawn. Epsom salt. Every homemade lawn recipe on the internet will tell you to dissolve Epsom salt in a sprayer and soak your grass for a deep green. It comes up in every comment section, every forum, every neighbor's advice over the fence. It sounds right. It involves a white powder in a sprayer, and it feels like science. Here's the chemistry the recipe leaves out. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate, not nitrogen. Magnesium. And magnesium only greens a lawn that is actually deficient in magnesium. Almost no lawn is. Every major university extension office that's tested this, Michigan State, North Dakota State, Washington State, has landed on the same finding. If your soil already has adequate magnesium, and it almost certainly does, adding more does nothing at all for the color. 0. You've sprayed water with an expensive bath soak dissolved in it. And it gets worse than useless. Magnesium and calcium compete for uptake in the soil. Load excess magnesium onto ground that doesn't need it, and you can actually block the calcium your grass does need, which creates a problem that wasn't there before you started trying to fix one that also wasn't there. The Epsom salt trick works if you're soaking your sore feet after a long Saturday of yard work. It does nothing for the yard. And I say this with some feeling because I tried it myself the first summer I had this lawn. 2 full applications before I looked up the chemistry and realized I'd been feeding a deficiency my soil didn't have. Save the Epsom salt. Buy the ammonium sulfate. One of them is nitrogen, the other one isn't. Now here's the part that turns the savings into something better than the premium product. And it's the part I didn't understand until my 3rd season using this. Remember the 24% sulfur riding along in every bag? Nobody talks about it. It's not on the front of any marketing. But it's doing a second job every time you feed, quietly in the background. Sulfur lowers soil pH, gently, gradually, over time. Now here's why that matters. A large number of lawns in this country, especially in hard water regions, sit slightly too alkaline. And in alkaline soil, grass physically cannot absorb the iron that's already present in the ground, no matter how much nitrogen you feed it. That's why some lawns look fed but still not deep. They've got nitrogen, they've got iron sitting right there in the soil, but the pH is blocking the handshake between the iron and the root. The premium bag's answer to this is to add iron to the product and charge you for it. The ammonium sulfate's answer is to fix the chemistry that's blocking the iron you already own. Over 2 seasons of feeding with ammonium sulfate, the sulfur nudges the pH down enough that the iron starts moving into the plant on its own. So the cheap bag doesn't just match the premium bag. Given time, it fixes a problem the premium bag charges extra to work around. You're getting the nitrogen and a slow soil correction in the same $2 scoop. I didn't notice it the first year. By the second summer, the color had a depth to it that I'd never gotten from the branded product. And I spent a month assuming it was the weather before I understood what the sulfur was doing. One more thing. Because it pairs with this and it costs nearly nothing. If you want to push the color further, mix a cup of plain blackstrap molasses into the water you're soaking the lawn with after you spread the ammonium sulfate. Not for the grass directly, for what lives underneath it. The sugar in molasses is pure carbon, and carbon is food for the soil bacteria that break nitrogen down into the form roots can actually absorb. A well-fed microbial population cycles your nitrogen faster, holds it in the soil longer, and keeps it from washing out in the next heavy rain. The honest caveat, and I'm going to give it to you straight. This only works if those microbes are already established in your soil, and in most lawns that have been growing for more than a couple of years, they are. It won't replace the nitrogen. It makes the nitrogen you just paid $2 for go further and last longer. Think of it as tipping the crew that does the actual work underground. A jug of blackstrap molasses costs a few dollars at the grocery store and lasts you a whole season of feedings. Make sure it says blackstrap on the label, not regular molasses. Blackstrap has a higher mineral content, and that's what the microbes respond to. Now I want to address my own title for a second, because I owe you that. Green forever is not literally true, and I want you to know that I know that. Nitrogen is consumed by the plant as it grows. It's removed every time you mow, because you're taking the tissue that absorbed it and bagging it or blowing it. It's leached by rain and carried down past the root zone. No single application of any product at any price makes a lawn permanently green. That is not how plant nutrition works, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling something that doesn't exist. What is true, and what I mean by the title, is that 2 applications a season, one in early summer and one in late summer, keep the color continuous from spring green up through fall. 2 scoops, 2 waterings, roughly $4 total for the year, on 1,000 square feet of grass. That's not forever. It's close enough, and it's honest. I've told you the rule. Let me tell you what happens when you learn it the hard way, because I did. And it's worth describing so you don't repeat it. My second season, I spread ammonium sulfate on a Thursday afternoon in July. It was 92 degrees. I watered it in, but not deep enough, just a light pass with the hose, because I was in a hurry. By Saturday morning, I had pale brown streaks running the length of the front yard, in the exact pattern of my spreader passes. It recovered in about 3 weeks with regular watering, but those were 3 weeks I spent explaining to my wife that the lawn was not dead and that I had not ruined anything permanently. She was not entirely convinced, so when I say water it in, I mean run the sprinkler for 20 to 30 minutes, enough that the ground is wet 3 inches down. A quick pass with the hose is not enough. I found that out, and now you don't have to. 2 more things worth saying. Do not apply this to a lawn that is already under drought stress or has gone dormant. A stressed plant absorbs poorly and burns easily. Feed a healthy lawn, not a struggling one. If your grass is brown and crunchy from 3 weeks without rain, the answer is water first, then feed later when it's recovered. Throwing nitrogen at a dormant lawn is throwing money at a plant that isn't listening. And do not apply more than the rate I gave you. Thinking more will mean greener. It won't. It means more salt, more burn risk, and a lawn that surges with growth so fast you're mowing every 4 days instead of every 7. Half a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Measure it. Use a kitchen scale if you have to. The difference between a beautiful feeding and a burned lawn is about 8 ounces of product per 1,000 square feet, and that's a margin too thin to guess at. One more timing note. Early morning or late afternoon, never midday in full sun. Cooler air means slower evaporation, which means the water you're soaking it with stays on the soil longer and carries the granules further from the blade surface. It's a small detail that costs you nothing and removes the last real risk from the process. Here's the part that stays with me, years later. The same compound sits on 2 shelves in the same town. On one shelf it's called lawn food and it's dressed up in a photograph and a promise and it costs $60. On the other shelf it's called ammonium sulfate and it costs $26. And the bag looks like it was designed by someone who had better things to do than choose a font. The grass between those 2 shelves doesn't know the difference, because there is no difference to know. A nitrogen atom is a nitrogen atom. It doesn't arrive at the root stamped with a brand. Farmers have understood this for longer than lawn care has been an industry. The only thing that changed is which aisle homeowners were taught to walk down, and nobody ever corrected the directions. So here's your Saturday. Drive to the nearest farm supply or feed store, not the garden center. Ask for ammonium sulfate, 21-0-0, about $26 for a 50-pound bag. Measure out 2.5 pounds per 1,000 square feet of lawn. Spread it evenly with a handheld broadcast spreader. Walk steady. overlap your passes. Water it in immediately. Not a light mist. Run the sprinkler for 20 to 30 minutes, enough to soak 3 inches down. If you want the bonus, dissolve a cup of blackstrap molasses in the water. Feed the crew underground while you feed the grass on top. Do it again in late summer. That's the whole year. About $4 total per 1,000 square feet, and your lawn will be the same shade of green it would have been if you'd spent 60. Tell me in the comments what you've been using and what it costs you. I read every one. And if you already knew about ammonium sulfate, tell me where you learned it, because I'd like to know how many of us found it the same way I did, standing in the wrong aisle with the right question. Next time I'll show you the mowing height adjustment that took me 3 seasons to unlearn, and why the number printed on your mower deck is measuring something different than you think it is. Until then, water it in. Don't skip that part.